Hello there, Year 13. This is another screencast looking at the written element of Unit 3, writing and evaluation of your research and development. This screencast is going to look at question 2. But before we go on, I want to remind you of the 6 questions that you've got to answer. You've got to answer all of these 6 questions in just 3,500 words. So that roughly is about 600 words per question. But that does mean you need to be quite concise as well. So this question, this screencast even, is going to look at this question here. How effectively have you personally explored and developed your roles? Okay. Before we go any further, I want to define this word roles. It is looking for you to write about the character or characters you played. Nothing else. It is not asking you to write about your directing skills or your devising skills or anything else. It is asking you to talk about how you have developed your character. The only difference that would be is for any students who are looking at doing the design options, and so therefore your role then would refer to your option that you've taken as a lighting director or a set designer. This screencast looks and assumes that you are on the acting path, and so therefore assumes that your role is an actor. So you're talking about the characters you played. Okay. Now, this question asks you 2 specific things. It asks you how you have explored and developed your character. Okay. So we need to make sure we split that up. So we need to be clear that exploring activities are the things that you did to get an understanding of your character, and then the developing activities are the things you did once you had that character to develop it into something performable. Essentially, it is asking you how you've gone from nothing to something. So we need to define what those kind of activities and what those things you might have done have been. So first of all, we need to think about exploring activities. And I've got a simple list of exploring activities here, and I think you can come up with a lot more that you've done in the development process. But certainly activities like hot seating, given circumstances, off-text improv, timelines of your character, which really links to given circumstances, anything to do with status exercises, anything to do with rehearsal activities, where you've specifically looked at developing your understanding of the character, would all be considered as exploring activities. So once you've got that understanding that you've gained from, let's say, hot seating, about how they react to other characters, you've then used that information to develop your character. And this is where it gets a little bit more tricky and perhaps a little bit more vague. So you really need to make sure that you continue to make it concise and specific. So tie your response to these keywords of voice, characterization, voice, movement, and that word rapport. All right. So talk specifically about how you have used that understanding from hot seating to change your voice, change your movement. Talk about how you've reacted to another character when they have entered the room. That's thinking about rapport. So all of this developing activities, make sure that your examples are really, really, really specific. Go down to the smallest example that you can think of. Your entrance, another character's entrance, one line that one character has said and that you respond to. And equally, when writing about movement or voice, what I always try to think of is describe your movement from your head down to your toe. So, which way were you looking? Were you making eye contact? What facial expressions did you have? What stance did you have? Where were your shoulders? What gestures did you do? How were your feet and your legs? Same thing, go through your voice. What was the volume, the pace, the projection, any pauses in there, any rhythm? Go through all of that really quite specifically so that the examiner can then see a link to how you've been developing your character and how you've used that then how you've been exploring your character and how you've then used that to develop your character. That's really, really important. So I want you to pause the video for a moment, and I want you to take notes under, first of all, the exploring the activities, all the activities that you've done, and then when you've figured out what the activities you've done, think about what you've learned from those activities, and then link it to the development of your character. And for that, I want you to make sure you think of really, really specific examples. Okay, so pause the video for a moment and create that set of notes. Okay, so once you've got those notes, I really want you to think of it as a three-step process. So you've got your exploring, what you've learned from that exploration, and how you use that learning to develop your performance. Okay, so once you've got those set of notes, I want you to start thinking about how you can use those notes to then write practice questions, and then ultimately the answer in your controlled assessment. So there are two ways that you can structure this essay. I've written it one way here, and then I'm going to describe to you another way. So the first way is to structure it in terms of 2 paragraphs. The first one focusing on the exploration activities, how you've explored your character, what you've learnt about it, and then the second paragraph is looking at developing your character. The second way I would suggest you structure this, and I'm sorry this hasn't come out quite as I would have liked, is to structure it in terms of so your point is talking about your exploration. I've spelled that wrong, sorry. So I did some hot seating in my to explore my character. Evidence is then what you've learnt. So from this activity, I have learned that my character responds in this way to this particular character. I use this information when developing my character. When they entered, I did X, Y, and Z, and go through your movement and your voice really specifically. I think that second example, that second way of doing, which I've just written out there for you, I think that's a really good way of doing it actually, and I would suggest that you go on from there and you write 2 paragraphs. That's 300 words each. So you're talking about 2 instances where you have explored and developed your character. And I think that's probably a lot better than doing it the first way I've suggested. But I think as long as you get the information across, you get the idea that this is what you've learned from your character, and this is how you've used that learning to develop your character, then you're going to communicate everything you need to the examiner. Okay, so have a practice of that essay. Maybe write it both ways. See which way you prefer. See which one communicates the most to the examiner. Remember, you can only take the notes into the controlled assessment and not your practice answers. Okay, good luck.